Hey, tonight I want to just share a little perspective, continuing our series on distortions. It's actually the last one. And then we're going to honor our seniors. And so I'm going to try to be brief. It is possible for me to do that. Some think it is, some think it really isn't. But I'm going for it tonight to be very quiet, very short and to the point. But, we're going to talk about the distortion that spiritual battle doesn't really exist. That's the distortion. And I think over the years, I've seen different extremes when it comes to spiritual battle. There's some people that would think that there's like a demon underneath any rock, right? There's a demon under the chair. And then you get the other extreme that says, I don't know about the spiritual battle. And the older I get, I tend to end in these areas that are not necessary for salvation, like spiritual battle, whether it exists or not, kind of in the middle. And I do believe it exists because I see it in the Bible. And so tonight I'm going to look at, unpack it just I only have a few minutes, so I can't really get into the in-depth of it. But the big idea is that because of the reality of spiritual battle, we need to be prepared for it. That's just what I want to, that's kind of the point. If you want an interesting study, as you're thinking about the summer, a really fascinating study to do is to take the Gospel of Mark, and I'm not saying just because it's the best gospel, that's my name, but actually it's the first gospel written. And but just read it and underline everywhere you see evidence of spiritual battle. And that would really illuminate the reality that exists. Almost around every corner of Jesus' ministry, there is battle of some sort, some spiritual battle. Mark 1, 12 and 13 starts it off. It says this, I can't believe I have to do this. The Spirit immediately drove him out into the wilderness and was in the wilderness 40 days being tempted by Satan. That was the start. He was baptized and immediately he was tempted. Immediately the battle began. And I find that pretty appropriate to think about even as we transition to our summers, where I think the battle wages quite intensely. But Jesus was very aware of that, and it'd be interesting to look at, we don't have time, how he interacted with the demons and the spiritual battle that existed. Just suffice it to say, he had authority over them. That's the big point. Ephesians 6 is a great passage we're not going to look at, but you can. It explains about the spiritual armor of God and how we can actually battle in the spiritual realm that we're in. But what I want to do is just share a couple of thoughts as I try to conclude from a really good book called Screwtape Letters. Who's ever read that? Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. Really good fiction. It's fiction. But it's 31 letters from Screwtape to his demon nephew Wormwood. It's a great name, child's name. Tuck that away sometime. Wormwood. Now, I wouldn't call your firstborn that. That's ridiculous. But so Screwtape is giving his nephew Wormwood kind of counsel and advice on how to trip up the patients. And the patient is a young Christian man who's trying to live out his everyday life. And so it's fascinating to see this counsel. And I want to put it up on the screen. The first quote from this book, it says this. This is Wormwood talking, or Screwtape talking to Wormwood. Never forget that when we're dealing with any pleasure in its healthy and normal and satisfying form, we are, in a sense, on the enemy's, which is God's ground. God, made the pleasure. All our research so far has not enabled us to produce one. All we can do is to encourage the humans to take the pleasures which our enemy, God, has produced at times or in ways or in degrees which God, has forbidden. C.S. Lewis writes, you have to kind of let it soak. This is what our summers look like oftentimes, doesn't it? A pleasure God created, inappropriately used in a way that God did not intend it to be. Listen to this quote from Piper. John Piper says this, Jesus Christ is refreshing, but flight from him into Christless leisure makes the soul parched. I'm guessing a lot of you are tired, right? You're ready to go home and sleep. And you're ready for your summers. But Piper, and I agree, says this, Christless leisure makes your soul parched. You ever experienced that? I have. It goes something like this. I am so tired. What do you do when you're really tired? I have given myself. And so my God-honoring thing I like to do is sit in front of the TV. I'm like, ESPN. I haven't watched this for a while. Oh, wow, there's a lot. And as you go to ESPN, oh, there's the original Karate Kid. Haven't seen that one for a while. It came out in the movie theater when I was young. I'm going to watch that, even though I know at the end he says, sweep the leg. I know he wins. But I'm going to watch this. Right? So there's another couple hours. Let's see what's back on ESPN. Oh, well, there's a baseball game. And just kind of, and after a while, it's like 5 hours before the TV. Now, I just want to ask this question. How many of you have ever felt refreshed watching TV? I never. But that's where I tend to go at times when I feel like I am tired. Now, listen to what Piper said. Now, Piper has never owned a TV in his life, which is pretty impressive. Listen when he says this, another thing about the summer. He says, don't let summer make your soul shrivel. God made the summer as a foretaste of heaven, not a substitute. If the mailman brings you a love letter from your fiancé, don't fall in love with the mailman. That's what summer is. It's God's messenger with a sun-soaked, tree-green, flower-blooming, lake-glistening letter of love to show us what he is planning for us in the age to come. Isn't that a great quote? It just kind of explains. I think so often I think that, the summer is here and I'm just going to live for just complete leisure. But, Piper's saying it's a foretaste. Let it be a foretaste. Don't fall in love with summer. Let it point you to the ultimate end. We're passing through. 1 Peter 1:1 says we're chosen aliens. We weren't created for this planet. We were created to our ultimate destination in heaven. Now, one last quote from Wormwood. It says, whatever their bodies do affects their souls. It's funny how mortals always picture us as putting things in their minds. In reality, our best work is done by keeping things out. It's amazing how thin the books were back when C.S. Lewis wrote. He would just say a couple sentences and you're like, oh my. Today's books are so thick, but C.S. Lewis, he was profound. See, this summer we'll have opportunities to put things in our minds, and either they will draw us close to God or draw us away from God. And the question for us is, what are we going to do? What are we going to put in our minds this summer? Last thing I want to share relates to spiritual battle, and then I'm going to finish with an acrostic. I like acrostics, the last group. This is from Wayne Grudem about spiritual battle, and he kind of describes some of the ways in which you can experience spiritual battle. He said it can actually be malicious slander or falsehood. It could be stubborn advocacy of false doctrine. It could be sudden, overwhelming emotion. It could be fear or depression. See, we live in a sin-wrecked world, and we can experience battle of the spiritual nature. We can experience things that apart from Christ, we're not going to win. And so as you reflect even this next few weeks, this next actually few days, and consider studying for finals, remember we're in a spiritual battle. It's all over it's all over the Bible. It's everywhere we go. But greater is He who's in you than is in the world. And one of the things we need to be is women and men of the Bible, so we can discern what's true and what's false. So I'm going to finish with this little acrostic. And you got to pay attention because I'm going to have you stand up in a minute, and then you're going to share what I just told you with your neighbor. Okay? So if you don't pay attention, people be like, what? Okay. It's hot. That's what the acrostic. It's hot. Hot. My wife is hot. She is. I'm not going to lie. She's like fine wine, my wife. We're going to look at 3 letters, H.O.T, hot, in terms of how to have a great summer. The first is this, have a plan. All right? When you think about the summer, those who are coming back, have a plan. You shoot for nothing, you'll hit it every time. So have a plan. Ezra 7:10 says this, for Ezra had set his heart to study the law of the Lord, to do it, and to teach his statutes and rules in Israel. Ezra had a plan. And what's the plan that you have? You want to have a great summer, you need to have a plan. Get into the Word. Spend time in prayer. I have some books up there I'm going to recommend. A couple books. The Wonderful Spirit-Filled Life by Charles Stanley, a great book on the Spirit-Filled life. Pure Desire by Ted Roberts, a great book on if you're really trying to figure out how to see success in purity. One of my favorite books I've read the last couple years is, I had to write it so you could understand it, Samson and the Pirate Monks. intriguing. Nate Larkin, really good, talks about community, the need for authentic community. Crazy Love by Francis Chan. How many people read that book, Crazy Love? It's a great book, really good book. A couple others that aren't, another one, the last one actually is, it's a 20-day devotional experiment. We actually have these out in the narthex, now in the lobby, for $5. It's on the Gospel of Luke. It's 28 days. This would be a great way to start out your summer with a plan. And it really does a great job going through the Gospel of Luke. Another book you can look at, one of my favorites is The Pursuit of God by Tozer. Another author you read and you're like, okay, I need to kind of take this in. Because he just writes depth when he writes. And last thing, how many people have ever read a Christian biography? A Christian biography. Oh, that is just sad. We got to change that. Christian biographies are some of the greatest books you can read because you can. It's obviously women and men of the past that have lived radical lives. Wow, you need to find a Christian biography like Jonathan Edwards or D.L. Moody. I was talking to Jake today. D.L. Moody in his biography, he had this goal every day to share his faith. And there's a story that he was in bed. He lived in Chicago, and it was raining out, and he just remembered he didn't share his faith yet. Put his overcoat on, went, found someone with an umbrella in the street, share his faith, led the person to Christ. D.L. Moody, just crazy. Loved the Lord, shared his faith like crazy. But there's tons of, Hudson Taylor, another great biography, brought the gospel to China. Right? China, am I thinking correctly? Hudson Taylor. A lot of great biographies out there. I would recommend those. Okay, so have a plan. Have a plan to get in the Word. And have a plan to just renew your mind with truth, with good books. Don't buy any bad books. Buy some good books. Okay, the second letter O is others need to be included. Now, I say this forever, but I'll keep saying it. Genesis 2:18 says it's not good for man to be alone. God has created you to be in fellowship and community with other people. And I think what tends to happen is you experience that community here for the year, and then you go home, and a lot of us go home to no community, and you wonder why you struggle. I think the greatest way the enemy tries to get us tripped up in the summer is to isolate us. So look for opportunities to get other people included. Ask your friend to hold you accountable. Use social media to stay in touch, to connect. When you're struggling, move towards someone and let them know you're struggling. Ask them to pray for you. A lot of my summers when I was in college were full of struggle. I did not do well in that. But it's better to live in community. I mean, just this morning I wanted to run with a friend I run with a couple times a week, and his knees hurt. So I had to run alone. Like how many people, like if I had a chance to run alone or run with someone every time, right? I'm going to work out alone. I want to live life with people. It's easier, isn't it? So I ran all by myself today. But actually it was good. I had some good prayer time. But it's so much easier to do things with other people. And so when it comes to the summer, others need to be included. The last point is truth in your mind. 2 Corinthians 10:5 says, we're destroying speculations and every lofty opinion raised up against the knowledge of God, and we're taking every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. Taking every thought captive. Looking for the truth, putting it in your mind, meditating on it, exposing your mind to biblical truth. So that's hot. So have a plan. Others need to be included in truth. Truth of the Word of God. Okay, I'm going to transition now. We're going to talk a little bit about honoring the seniors tonight. And this is actually a night that we love to do because of their labor and because I don't think they'll be honored like this in really good leaders necessarily. But they know and we know that the world will be changed because of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Because there's power in the gospel for salvation to everyone who believes. The hope of our world is the gospel of Jesus Christ. The hope of the future families that they will have someday is not in what they learned here through their classes, but what they learned about Jesus Christ. And they learn how to disciple students. You know what's going to happen when they get married someday? They're going to disciple their little kids. And that's what changes the world. The breakdown of the family, the fact that there are families that do not have Jesus Christ as the center, and 40% of them don't have fathers. Okay, just stop. I'm going off track. Come back to go to my notes. So that's what's exciting about this group of seniors, is that one day They will be fathers and mothers, husbands and wives, and what they've learned here will translate in being effective in changing the world. And that's what is a little missing sometimes at the graduation ceremonies. Now the reality is that there'll be awards, but here's something that won't be there next week, is that there'll be no award at the ceremony for outstanding character. There's not going to be an award for a sacrifice of time that was not wasted but invested in other people's lives. There's not going to be an award for development of a deep relationship with the Eternal Father. I'm fairly certain about that one. There will be no award for biblical convictions. Wouldn't that be interesting at your graduation? Look at this diploma for biblical conviction. Not going to happen. There will be no award for purity and holiness that many of them have seen seen success in their lives and freedom. There will be no award for taking the gospel to Fiji and to Chicago and Panama City and Rome. They will not get any awards for that. There will be no awards for sacrificing their GPA a point or two because they said yes to a friend, because they invested in people. And there certainly will be no awards for the legacy that they leave behind. You see, the university is going to honor your peers, but in my opinion, you all deserve the honor because of your sacrifice, because of your investment in eternity. Now we know that this side of heaven, we're not going to get much words, but one day, 1 Corinthians 3 and 2 Corinthians 5 talk about receiving an award for the work that we've done, for the quality of our work will be judged. And that we might one day there'll be either wood, hay, or straw, purified into precious stones, gold and silver. So tonight we're going to honor the senior class with a diploma. And we've done this for many years, Jane, haven't we? How many years have we been doing this, Jane? We'll just say several. When we don't know, we just say several. That's anywhere between 20 and 35. But this is what it says. It's actually a diploma. It says, Miami University World Christian Training Center, Oxford House, certifies that this person has actively participated in Campus Crusade for Christ, and as a result of their investment has been awarded the Certificate in Evangelism and Discipleship, and is hereby charged with continuing your training until this race is finished. Your hard work and faithful service are very much appreciated. And we do appreciate that, and there are many that have actually put this in their doctor's office or in their business to be a testimony of God's faithfulness in their lives.